next question was sent in the CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Dennis Bird. I was wondering about your thoughts on Ricky Steamboat. If you ever knew him or any stories, he's one of my favorites, and it's a shame he never won a world title. Boy, this...
What? What the fuck? One of my favorite wrestlers ever. I was in a coma for the first 6 months of 1989, but otherwise than that, I've followed his career with great intent. I love Ricky Steamboat as a professional wrestler. He was a gold standard for an in-ring babyface worker. Also a great person. I've always enjoyed being around him. I've, met him first actually when he came to WCW in '89, and we were in and out, so I didn't get to know him very well there. But then over the intervening 30 years or whatever, I've gotten a chance to work with him on a number of independent events and been around him for some productions. He's a great guy, great shape, youthful looking. He was the dragon, but just in the ring, I mean, he and Youngblood were very overlooked as an all-time great babyface team. Youngblood was good too, but there he's, next to fucking Steamboat. They had a great run. It just didn't last long enough in enough places besides the Carolinas for a lot of people to see him. But I mean, you can't. The only bad thing I've ever said about Ricky Steamboat, it wasn't about him. It was just about, Jim Herd and Ricky's ex-wife Bonnie collaborating to fucking bury him as the family man in, WCW in '89 when he, there he's coming to the ring with little Ricky and the dragon outfit and Bonnie in the ball gown. And then here comes Flair with the fucking models that everybody just was convinced that he was just fucking the hell out of that night. It goddamn custom made everything. And it made the heel the babyface and the babyface the heel. But it was botched, but the matches were that Flair and Steamboat had those number of matches in '89, and some of the house shows were fabulous too. But just that they had that trilogy on pay-per-view, even though the company, let them down in terms of it didn't draw because it was the TBS, the start of the TBS era and nothing could draw. But those matches are the gold standard for pro wrestling. I don't know that wrestling ever got any better and could still be taken all the way through as a complete contest. Any match after Flair and Steamboat that was better I'm not talking about in a straight out bloody brawl, violent grudge match way, but just in a fucking work rate way, as the kids say, work rate. They went as far as you could go, cooperating without obvious cooperation to put the entertainment into wrestling and still make it look like a contest. I think that to me has always been the perfect balance. I think, that what's gone on past that has tipped over into, I think I saw through it, but it was the gold standard for what anybody in the ring was capable of doing at that time.
When you rescued the Mid-Atlantic tapes, how big of a revelation was how good Steamboat was early in his career? Oh. There's one match on there I love. It's him and Harley Race. That is just fantastic. Yes. And Harley's bumping his ass off for Steamboat.
I just got goosebumps because when I got the film, one of the reels that was labeled one of the biggest reels, because the 16 millimeter film reels, the standard reel, it was like, the standard size, you get like 7 or 8 minutes. So I knew a lot of these were, highlights of matches, but there was one that it's the size of a 12-inch LP. And those are the ones that are like 20 minutes or whatever, 22 minutes. And Flair and Steamboat NWA title, or not Flair and Steamboat, Steamboat Race NWA title was on the label. I was like, oh my God, I couldn't wait to get that. I sent that in the first batch. But I'm not trying to sell this now at that website that we don't speak of. And I custom make all of them. So it takes a while if you order it, allow a little extra time. But there's a half a dozen Flair Steamboat matches that nobody had ever seen in all or in part on those tapes, among others. But Steamboat, he could work with anybody. He could work with a guy like Flair. He could work with a more brawler like Harley Race, or, you see him in there with the Andersons. And the way he sold and portrayed the physical pain on not only on his face, but with his body language. And, a lot of people say, well, he was too smooth. And He was very smooth, but it added to I always just thought he was so cool because I liked Bruce Lee, as everybody did. If you grew up as a kid when Bruce Lee was hot, it would do martial arts shit that wasn't even martial arts, but we made it martial arts, right? But he just had that smooth way of moving and the cool martial arts stance, the goddamn body of a Greek god. When he was in the Carolinas there, he and several of the boys, that's when Snuka was cut and ripped. We're training for bodybuilding. So he looked like a god. And then also his promos, he could fire up, but at the same time, he had that snatch the pebble from my hand, grasshopper tone, like he was the dragon. He fit. What you got when you looked at him and saw him wrestle and heard him talk was the impression that he was who he was purported to be. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was fucking cool. To me.